Hello, Global Theater. My name is Gerry Fialka. Today is March 3rd, 2026. I want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. It's an honor and pleasure to be here back with Vinny Golia for part two. Where are you calling from, Vinny?
I'm in Newhall.
Newhall. How cool is
Yeah.
that? We did part one August 19th of last year, and I really learned a lot, and I appreciate your time and energy. So I wanted to dive into music. We were talking about the function of music, and Aaron Copland says the four elements or four ingredients of music are melody, harmony, rhythm, and tone color. So I know there's probably more, but let's just start by discussing those four if we could.
Mhm.
First question is, how would you describe what is tone color to the normal person on the street, not in non-academic terms?
Mm. Uh, well, before we start that, he goes in four. I put tone color in with melody, so I only have three. I have the
Okay,
same.
you
I have
you
the
put
same first three as he has, but
okay, so you put tone color in with melody. Okay.
yeah. And see, like that tone quality is what creates the essence of the melody. Like in Indian music, they say the rag is colors that is the are the colors of the scale in a rag is what the colors are of what the thought or emotion is. So I think now back to your question, I think that when people hear specific melodies, it's how the melodies are presented with that tonal coloration. So let's say it's Sheryl Crow or Harry Belafonte or Pavarotti or John Coltrane or Cannonball, right? Each one of those people approaches the melody with their own essence of what emotion what that melody brings out, what emotion that melody brings out in them.
Yeah.
So if you hear Coltrane play Alabama, which was for the church that was bombed in Alabama, you hear the gravitas and you hear the sadness in that sound of and the and if you hear Cannonball playing, you hear the joy and happiness that he has when he plays something. Although when he plays a melody like let's say behind Nancy Wilson, then his approach is colored by how Nancy Wilson sings the song. They really work really well together. It's a great partnership when they're playing together. And when he plays a melody, when he plays with his brother Nat, that's another way of playing that specific melody. So the tonal aspect of it is the emotion once more of how the player sees that line and how they approach that line. And that's what
Beautiful.
people hear.
Yeah.
mm, you
I
know.
really appreciate your words, Vinny. You're a wordsmith, and I can tell that you were a painter first. You were an artist first, really, or sort of. You started in the arts and then went into music because you painted a picture. Because when you first brought up Sheryl Crow, I was thinking, well, the way Sheryl Crow's voice sounds is different than the way Bessie Smith's voice sounds, but the emotion is what you're saying the the feeling is what tone color is.
That's what I think it is.
Yeah.
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 Now,
Yeah.
even before we go into those four breakdowns, and that's fine. You put tone color and melody. You brought up the raga, and this is Ravi Shankar in 1956. For better enjoyment of Indian music, Western audiences should forget about harmony and counterpoint and mix tone colors and relax rather in the rich melody and rhythm.
Mm.
So, I mean, I'm curious your thoughts on that because it's almost like, is he saying what you're saying, that that tone color is in melody, or something different?
Well, he's older than I am, so he'd have to. I'd have to bow and touch his feet there about that kind of stuff.
You're a humble man, but I mean, it's one person I read that to said, "Oh, he's just trying to sell Western audiences to listen to Eastern music." But I think he's saying that, there's something deeper there. I don't know. I'm always curious on what he's trying to say to us.
Well, I saw him once. I saw him a few times. I was very fortunate, to be in New York when the explosion of Indian music hit.
Yeah,
And I had a lot of his records, and I started to get into Eastern music and that kind of stuff. And I went to see him. He played at Carnegie Hall
yeah.
with he played with Ala Raka and Ali Akbar Khan,
Ooh,
and it was magnificent. But they first got there, they came to the stage, and people applauded. They sat down and tuned up, and when they finished tuning up, the people started applauding because they didn't understand the concept of what the music was. So I was going like, "What the hell are they applauding for? He's just tuning up, you know." And I'm talking to my friend, and Ravi Shankar does this, the thing, and he goes, "Oh, thank you so much, thank you so much. If you like the tuning up, you're gonna love the music." So, so when he talks about these things, we see it with our current viewpoint, where now the world is like, you know, walnut size. You know, before then, the world was like so in front of you that you couldn't see out. You couldn't see because you were too close to everything.
yeah.
So, so I think for many people, he tried to explain the concept of what mood was, and what the what made the differences in the music. Although to me, there's this the drums and whatever melody instrument are playing, that there's a lot of counterpoint to me, but that's it's I understand it's not traditional counterpoint. It's rhythmic interaction in a different way, but still it's counterpoint, if you look at it in a very objective way. So because these lines are swooping around and answering and questioning each other, but I think, like, for him to express, to really try to get Westerners to embrace that whole concept, he was just trying to, like, simplify things so people wouldn't overthink them. Uh,
Overthink.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, that would be my guess. You know, I never met him, but I met other Indian musicians and had the great fortune to play with El Subramaniam and actually Ali Akbar Khan's son, Ashish Khan, and
Yeah.
also Swapan. The tabla maestro, who was teaching at the time at CalArts, and there's nothing, I mean, it's uh, the complexity is just sometimes overwhelming, especially in South Indian music. Like the kind more towards the stylistic ways that John McLaughlin plays, or stuff like that. That's really, the South Indian music is rhythmically the most complex music on the planet, because all these variants in tempo you hear, it's all based off of one tempo, and one person is counting all the time in the group. You'll see that's what they have, two percussionists, but often the two percussionists, one just counts the time so people know where the time is, and everything else is rhythmic subdivisions. It's
Wow.
basically one tempo,
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
but it seems like it's 25 tempos, you know.
we're gonna get into time. You're anticipating one of my upcoming questions, but did you know John Bergamo? Did you work with him?
Yes, I played.
Yeah.
We used to play duos quite a bit.
Yeah, because he.
A great honor, a
Oh
really
my
great
God.
honor. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
magnificent musician.
yeah. Oh my God. Amazing. So I mean, Frank Zappa wrote his most complex piece of music. One of them, The Black Page, working with Bergamo at Cal Arts. So these three elements, you could talk about them. Copeland just, dissecting it down to melody, harmony, and rhythm. How do
Hmm.
you navigate? What do you favor? How do you integrate? Can you talk about those three in, writing a Vinny piece? Melody, harmony, and rhythm.
Hmm. Well, for me, a lot of the harmonic material I use is non-functional. I mean, it's not really like chord progressions, like 2 5s, 1 2 5 1s and stuff. I do write tunes with harmonic, with chord changes occasionally, but most of the time I'm dealing mostly with melody and rhythm and counterpoint. And I like to think that rhythm is the most important element in the whole essence of things. Now, other cultures around the world, especially cultures that don't have that kind of uh, uh, ne- that necessity to adhere to harmonic movement, it's mostly melody and rhythm. And if you really get down to it, melody is just notes in sequence, so that's rhythm. So we're talking about rhythm almost all the time. I mean, time and rhythm. Now, those are two different things, but we're talking about rhythm, and people have to have like really make sure that the rhythm is somewhat precise. And it's kind of like people who know me are going to say like, oh, you're not precise all the time, and I'm not. I like to stretch the rhythm and make the rhythm more plastic and elastic. There are other people you play with, like Alex Klein, for example. He likes the rhythm to be very taut and very, very. He's very meticulous about playing things where he thinks they should be. And a number of players are like that, and there are whole schools like that deal with rhythm cycles and stuff. So I would have to say the most important aspect is rhythm. Now, whether I achieve that or not, that's another story, but that's something else. But I think rhythm is the most important aspect of the whole thing.
It's beautiful, Vinny. So well put. You just open up my mind to so many. Who was that great jazz drummer in LA? A white dude who was Billy. I always want to say something with an M. Billy
Mints, Billy
Mintz.
Mints.
Mintz.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. We used to see him. Remember when you guys would play Lakma when it was really cool
Yeah.
way back? And here's our imitation of Billy. And they were like he would hit a cymbal, then he would literally kind of fall asleep and lay back and then hit another drum. And it was like, no, everybody overplays these days, in my opinion. But that was like, show us a space between the notes. And I love George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic, and they go, everything is on the one.
Hmm. Hmm.
So let's go into. I'm going to divert from the script to go into this time thing because
You have
there's
a
two.
script? You make a script?
Yeah, this is my script. I mean, I have a lot of topics I want to cover, and
That's
this
cool.
is Thelonious Monk. We're talking on rhythm and time now. This is Thelonious Monk saying all musicians are subconsciously mathematicians. Now, when we listen to Monk, he seems the most non-mathical, no, not math, that he's hitting these it's like drunken sailor music almost, like here's a one that you would. My sister was a cheerleader, 60, 70 years ago in high school. They needed to,
Yeah.
invent these patterns. So she would take an empty soup can and throw it down the stairs. In the steps, the can would hit and go bing, bonk, bing, bonk, bing, so she would get a beat out of this thing falling down the stairs. So, is that math or is that not math? So I like Monk kind of saying all music is math because it's almost an ironic statement he was saying. But here's the other point is Godfrey Leibniz saying he described music as a hidden arithmetic exercise of the soul, which does not know that it is counting. So I'm curious if you can talk about this counting, that it does not know it is counting. I don't even know what either of those statements mean, but I thought they could be prompts to get you to talk about time and music.
Well, I mean, if you listen to Monk, I mean, his stuff is it's quite precise. I mean, he likes that time. He likes time.
Yeah.
His stuff is very metric in time, and you can see that the best horn players that play with him really adhere to the melodic shapes and such. People like Steve Lacy, Coltrane, Johnny Griffith. But the master of playing with Monk is Charlie Rouse. He's very
I was just
underrated.
going to say,
Yeah,
Charlie
yeah,
House.
totally underrated. I mean, his solos are magnificent on the Monk tunes because he never really leaves the melodic information behind. Whereas cats like Train's working his system over the chords, and he's really getting the chords and doing all these kind of linear mazes on top of this rhythmic grid, and it's really wonderful. But if you want to hear the melodies of it, then I'd say the second best guy who plays Monk is Steve Lacy.
Yeah.
And both of them really spent a lot of time with Monk and going to Monk's house and learning the music, as did Coltrane. But the story that I heard about Monk and Coltrane is that Monk would have him come over early, and he'd show him the tune, and then Monk would go back to bed, and Coltrane would be there for an hour or two, and Monk would wake up and give him another tune to work on, and Train would work it out and stuff like that. You know. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Each person comes up with his own system. Now the system, like you have a bass player like John Orr, he really clots it out, bop, 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 or Abdul Malik. I mean, those guys really put the structure there. There it is, wham. They don't deviate from it. Matter of fact, both their solos often are walking just through the changes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have that, and then we have these brilliant saxophone players. You have Sonny Rollins, who's probably the one who doesn't keep the grid the most because Sonny's like bursting with ideas and will superimpose things on top of other things. And these other guys though are playing inside the grid, especially Steve Lacy. It's very there's a fantastic use of space. Like, he's the most spacious player of all of those players.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because of the soprano or not, but he really accents the melody in that shape. So now, if you're thinking about accenting the melody, you have to know where the melody falls on the grid, and then you're selecting certain places to enter and stuff. So he's doing mental subdivisions without sometimes realizing it, and sometimes just working off the melody, because you keep the melody happening in your head while you're playing these tunes. Especially when Monk leaves the piano, because there's a whole vista that you can go like so many places with that. But you see when Charlie Rouse is playing, Monk is dancing.
Yeah,
Exactly. See, he's dancing
literally
he's
dancing.
really playing the melodic information. And what do you dance to when you play to rhythm and the melody and you dance to that, And so Rouse is really like, it's almost ingrained in him. And with the players that they have, it's like a machine. So I say that like that grid gives you that time grid gives you a chance to really amplify where Monk has placed his music within this giant grid. And you are doing math, but you're not thinking about math. That's that Charlie Parker thing, practice, 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 get on the bandstand, forget about practice, because then you just want to play what you play. Now, he's the master of really metric gridding. I mean, his rhythm is the missing link, was the missing link in bebop. Like everybody was working on the harmonic part, and Bird came in and said, like, and you play the melody this way, bam, and all of a sudden that whole thing went whoop, just like that. He's the missing link from all this stuff. He's the rhythmic missing link that puts his melodic information like on never on, always like a little, like always like a little, always just a little groove to it. I mean, when you look at the transcriptions of his music, it's
Yeah,
very like right, okay, but he didn't play that. He plays
yeah,
I mean, swallows things, he puts things here, he's throwing things around, it's like, well, what? I mean, just walking down the street, that's like a guy limping, in a hurry.
yeah,
I mean, you can see like he's looking, and he's seeing things, and he's putting, and he is putting it into numbers, but he's not putting it into metric numbers. He's putting it, here's the grid, no problem. I see it really clearly. And now when I play, I can come in when I want. He's got that facility and freedom to really offset how he plays melody. And
yeah.
that's the rhythmic thrust that makes bebop what it is.
Yeah, so well put. But again, I'm just curious. This Leibniz quote is always puzzling to me. The hidden arithmetic music is the hidden arithmetic exercise of the soul, which does not know that it is counting. So is
Mm,
that what you're saying? Yeah, like Bird saying, practice, practice, practice. Now abandon that and just go for it.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, he knows it so well
yeah,
that he can put it wherever he wants to put it. And that, I mean, that's almost like what this person is saying.
yeah,
It's not unconscious, because you you know everyone thinks this stuff is magical, but you got to spend a lot of time in the shed to do this stuff.
I love.
I don't care what kind of music you play, even if you play the most unpopular music in the world, you spend time working on it, and you don't think it's unpopular. You like
Yeah.
it. That's why you play it, right? No one. I remember Anthony Braxton. I said something to him once, and Braxton looked at me and he said, "Vinny," he said, "no one thinks their music is unpopular." And I
Yeah,
was like, and I was like, holy shit, that's right.
yeah,
No one, otherwise they wouldn't do it. They would want,
yeah.
yeah, it's like, anyway,
It's like
that's
it's like
that's
it's like the Shags. They're rated the worst band in the history of the world, and they would play their high school prom, and the kids would throw Coke cans at them, and that they impressed Carla Bley, Elvis Costello, Frank Zappa said better than the Beatles even today. They're an amazing band, but most people run out of the room when you put them up. So here's my time question, Vinny. Frank Zappa says it's unnatural to play in 4/4 because you don't speak in 4/4. Why is 4/4 time the most commonly used time signature in Western music?
well, he's got a point. I mean, if you listen to Billie Holiday, She's not singing in four. She sings in three. She sings
Yeah.
in quarter note. Sings in quarter note triplets
Yeah.
against the beat. But that's the African thing. It's like that three against four is what makes jazz what it is, or any music really. I mean, pop music too. I mean, that three against four thing that comes from the heart of the coast of Africa, or all over Africa. That three against four is like really the essence of like most music that we think about. So we're always thinking in kind of multiples, but to write it out, to look at it, it's easiest to just write it in four. I mean, really, you should write it without any time signature and just put it there and then figure it out. Like, oh, here's my groupings according to the way you hear the melody. That's how I used to do it. I don't do it that way anymore because you run into too much trouble trying to explain it. So I just write it in normal time signatures. But but um but when I first started, I put it like a painting, like in groupings of notes, held together by brackets. And some of the more modern, I don't know if they're modern, but some of the current ways of using graphic score or notation and stuff, a lot of it is well, in graphic score it's pictorial,
Yeah.
in some music notation systems like Leo Smith's and some of Braxton Slater's stuff. It's the system of notes, putting notes together and really controlling the repetition of the notes and the movement of the of time and stuff. And it's not always uh, even some often doesn't have a time signature at all. It's all based on pulse and different kind of time. So now we're talking about, like, you can have beat, you can have pulse, you can have metric time, you can have all these things now, and we have better systems to explain it. So it doesn't have to be always in 4/4. But the easiest way to notate everything is in 4/4. And we don't talk in 4/4. I never talk in 4/4. I talk in like 27/2. I don't know what the hell I talk. You know,
27 too.
I I have a system of, like, when I talk, it's very circuitous and all over the place. I mean, I'm a true Italian. We do grand gesture, and then eventually we get to the point. But
Well, you talk in Jackson Pollock time, but it's funny because I asked, Wayne Pete, I asked him this question, in all the musicians I interview, why is 4/4 the most commonly used time signature in Western music? And here's some of what that said is, besides being intuitive and easy, which is a word you use, easy, it might be because it's in sync with walking or marching, which, Wayne said, well, we got 2 feet and 2 hands and in 2 arms. So that's 4/4. So it, and they also say, and then, there's no right or wrong answer, but there's some that say it's in sync with our heartbeat. What do you think our heartbeat is, time signature wise? Any guess, or is it are we
well,
able to say?
everybody's is different, but
Yeah,
it's definitely a multiple. It's
yeah,
three against four. It's four against three. I mean,
yeah.
when you look at it, there's different parts. There's different parts working at different time. I kind of know a lot because I've been in the hospital in and out for heart stuff. So when I see my heart is doing this kind of thing, and then there's AFib, which takes it totally out, because then all of a sudden your heart gets free. It's like pumping, 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 and then boom, 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 and it's totally off. So people with AFib never have like regular pulses. They have these bursts of like So you have all that kind of thing. That a person who's healthy and doing running, right? If they're running really fast, their heart starts going. If you hear it and you listen to it on a stethoscope, it's going. So it's not like bump bump
Right.
bump 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 bump.
Right.
That's not even 4/4. It's like bump 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 bump. I mean, nobody's heart beats like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't be like that
Yeah.
because if I walk to the kitchen, my blood pressure goes up 10 points. So
Yeah.
my heart's not at the same rate anymore, is it? All right. And that means that the certain parts have to work better or worse to like to pump faster and clear it out and clean it. That means these organs now have to draw more blood to that. Your liver's working harder. Everything's working harder just to walk to the refrigerator to get something to eat. So then you get your food, and then all of a sudden your heart is like, hmm, hmm. Right. So it's never steady,
No, it's
and
never steady. Yeah.
it's never four.
Yeah.
It's not four. It's multiples. It's always multiples. It's
Yeah.
always compound. Always compound.
Yeah.
And so that so and even if you look at people walk, they don't unless they're been in the military for a really long time. They don't walk like I don't walk
Right.
like
Right.
this
Right.
unless I have to do steps or something like that. I mean I walk in a lope, and then you see different cultures, they walk in different ways too. Like if
Yep.
you look at certain cats walk like like that, other cats walk like this, other cats are tight, some cats then there, and then you have that the nun in the Blues Brothers movie who doesn't walk at all. She just kind of comes in.
Vinny, this is great because Captain Beefheart commented on this, and I'm curious your thoughts. He said he wanted to vary from what he called the mama heartbeat. He
Hmm.
called that same old 4/4 rhythm. It was related to fascism. It's so fixative, so hypnotic, so synthesized to where it's dangerous to the heart. Disco is faster than the heart, and he wanted a non-hypnotic music to break up the catatonic state. So I'm curious of your thoughts on him just saying he wanted to break out of the same old 4/4 rhythm.
Well, if he has, yeah, I mean, if you listen to a lot of his recordings, he has a certain affinity for blues cats from Chicago,
Yeah.
and especially Howlin' Wolf.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay. So if you listen to Howlin' Wolf's drumming, there's nothing, the drummers who play with Howlin' Wolf, there's nothing like robotic about their sound. It's sometimes it's like garbage cans running down the staircase or something.
Yeah.
It's like all these multiple sounds happening all at once. And so I can see why he gravitated towards that and not towards some other kind of 4/4-ish kind of thing. At the same time, you can have that 4/4 if you think about drummers like Eddie Blackwell, who
Yes.
who then subdivide that 4 constantly. So it's never 4, it becomes 8/8 instead of 4/4. So it's all on eights.
Yeah.
It's all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's the other thing about Indian music is like all the drum patterns are sung.
Yeah.
That's
Sing 'em.
they don't learn them from looking at a page and such. And they learn them from singing
Yeah.
and playing them. So there's a natural lilt to those things automatically from
Yeah.
singing. I mean, the so I would just say like like maybe he said that, and that's cool, and then how he implemented that was to listen music of different cultures and stuff, and especially that Chicago blues sound, which is that. And then also, like, he has these incredible shuffle beats, like When I See Mommy, I Feel Like a Mummy, and that Doc at the Radar Station. Some of the early stuff has no time whatsoever. It's very free form and free associated, like the Blimp. Look, Frank, it's the Blimp. Frank, look, it's the Blimp. I mean, there are all these things that he's incorporated that loosens his sound, that flourish kind of sound up. There's more pulse to his music than sometimes there is a strict beat, I think.
Yeah. That's amazing because I had Greg Cohen, the great bass player, on,
Yeah.
and he used to go over and talk to Don when he was a teenager, and they would be listening to Steve Reich and Coltrane together for like he got to hang out with them when he was a kid like 100 times. So you really nailed a lot. We're covering so much ground, Vinny. And my friend says the 3 T's of music are technique, theory, and taste. And so, technique, you've learned how to play a horn. Theory, the structure. How does one acquire taste?
Listening.
Yeah.
Listening. You have to listen. Listening is the key. You have to know the history. So that means you have to listen to all the people who got you where you are without you even knowing it. You know, um, Bobby Bradford just sent me a book on Don Bias.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love I love Don Bias. Don
Yeah.
Bias is fantastic to me as a player. And
Yeah.
Sonny Stitt, I like Sonny Stitt. I don't play anything like those two players,
Yeah.
but I love them and I listen to them all the time. And when I'm home practicing, I practice on tunes and things like that. And these cats are masters of playing that music. And the more you listen to people who play outside of your idiom, the wider your own idiom gets, because you bring in all these elements, and then you have the ability to pick and choose what you want to say, like a careful conversation with somebody. So that gives you the filter of like saying like, I don't want to offend this person, so I should phrase this way. You know, you don't think about that when you're actually talking to somebody, but you feel it and you do something like that, you respond,
Yeah.
So the more you hear these fantastic players, and mostly players that you don't like, you can
Yeah.
learn much more from players you don't like, because you got to figure out why you don't like them.
You
It's like,
you just quoted exactly when we asked George Clinton what kind of music he liked. He says, the kind that pisses me off so I can figure out why I don't like it. Like how can music be fucked up? Music's great. We have biases and tastes. Like, oh my God, you were listening. So that was really good, because here's the follow-up, Vinny. And this is Marshall McLuhan saying song is slowed down speech. The reason cultures have different musical taste is ultimately connected to language difference. So there's sort of two things there. Song is slow down speech, but it's more so this taste thing. I'm curious. The reason cultures have different musical tastes is ultimately connected to language difference. I'm not saying he's right or wrong. I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
well, like when you one of the things that's missing in a lot of um I don't want to sound like an old fart, but like in a lot of players, is that they don't have the opportunity to apprentice with bands that are established. Back in the a number of years ago, like you would get out of wherever you were or coming up, you could play with such and such, and you could play with such and such, and you could play with
Yeah,
such and such. And every time you did that, you absorbed some of that person's not not their style, I don't want to say that, but their viewpoint on the world. You would see it in their music, and how they presented their music, and how they really worked on their music to get it to be where it was. And then you would progress to a different band, maybe, and go play with a different bunch of people, and each person you played with left their mark, and it broadened your cultural awareness. Nowadays most people do projects.
Yeah.
They come out of school, they do a project, the music of, okay, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm doing one tomorrow like that, a recording of music of Sonny Schrock. So okay, we're doing these kind of things, and that's fine. But I mean, you have to have a place where you do your own music with people who are sympathetic to what it is that
Yeah.
you're trying to say, and get that, the nucleus of what it is that you are really humming, really, really working, so that it's spinning and doing stuff and stuff. And as this thing expands and stuff, you jump another electron level, and you add more things to it, and your viewpoint becomes wider and wider, and you acquire this thing you call taste. But basically what it is like, you learn how to filter and play to an audience, and you refine your sound, and you refine your what you write, and you refine your viewpoints on what you see as right and wrong, and then you comment on it. I mean, that's what you do, because you learn that from these grand masters.
You mean
That's
like
what they do.
playing with Horace Tapscott or Sun Ra for many years? That's what you're talking about. It's not. It's beyond going to the college of them. It's becoming a living organism with them. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it's like okay. Here's a great example. Yeah, oh, I think it's a great example. I get a book about, let's say, Sidney Bechet. He's a good one to pick. Here's a
Yeah.
book about Sidney Bechet, and I read this book, and I'm really thrilled with his music and stuff. Here's a book with Sidney Bechet talking about what he
Yeah.
went through in his own words, and why he does what he
Yeah.
does, and what made his sound. Now, that book that he wrote is worth more to me, because that's
Yeah.
him talking directly to me. Those people, like when you play in their bands like Horace, I had the good fortune to play with Horace. Okay, so I'm playing in Horace band, and on the break we're talking. I see how he handles when people come up to him. I see how he's a beacon of the community. I see how people revere him. I see how his musical outlook changes, and what makes, how he can sit at the piano and make the place that he's sitting in like a church. I see that, and frankly, I want that. I want to be like that.
Yes.
you
Yes.
know I mean, I don't want to be him, but I want to have that power of like making a sound, and people go, whoa, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. That's
That
right. You know, that's
that is
I
so
want
brilliant.
that. But
I
you
know. I
don't
love.
get that. You don't
Yeah.
get that if you don't if
Yeah.
you
If you,
don't
yeah.
spend time with that person,
Yeah.
you
But
know?
even just giving the analogy with the book is with Louis Buñuel, the great filmmaker.
Mm.
There's a lot of books on Louis Buñuel, and I love to study them all. But the book that really you get the essence of book is My Last Sigh, the book that he wrote. You really get it. And so that was a great. What's more fundamental, music or language?
Music is language.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, so it's the same.
yeah,
There's no difference. It's just put into a different form,
yeah,
Yeah, people can disagree with that, because, like, I mean, I'm talking about the music that we play, so, using instruments to take the place of words. Other people who write songs and stuff, then, that's, there's really no difference because they're just singing their ideas to you. They're talking directly to you. It's a little more abstract with instruments,
When
without
it's
any
instrumental
words.
music. Yeah, but
Yeah.
you actually anticipated the next question, Vinny, and that is, tell me the name of a song that's an instrumental that makes you laugh.
That's interesting. Boots Randolph, the Yakety Sax.
Yeah, I get that one. Yakety sax. That's right. And so, um,
I mean, that makes me laugh one way.
yeah,
Then there's also like songs like sometimes monks tunes make me laugh and they make me happy. It's a different kind of laughing, you know.
that's That's what I usually say. The song that makes me laugh is Monk. But I mean that is funny, but there's no words. So talking about Monk, he says silence is the loudest sound in the universe. Now I have a few quotes I want to read you about silence by various musicians, but the first question is, how do you know when not to play? How do you know when to incorporate silence in music, playing, and composition?
Mhm. Well, that was hard for me. I had to learn how to do that. Um, and I'll tell you a story about it. So one time I'm playing duos with Ken Filiano, the bass player, and Ken takes a solo, and I'm playing behind him, and we finish playing, and Kenny looks at me and he says, "So what was that?" And I said, "What?" I said, "I'm playing behind you. I'm supporting your solo." And he starts laughing. He said, "Ah, you played the same amount of notes in the same volume as when you were soloing." And I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "You want to play behind me? You have to play behind me. Behind me. You have to listen to me." So that's how I learned more about silence from Ken. I learned
That
from
is
Ken.
beautiful. How
Yeah.
many years ago about was that?
He was living in Venice then, and I had just met him. So it must have been in the 80s. Must be like the middle, like I'd say 85 or something like that.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah,
But
it was weird. I used to just play too many notes. I still play a lot of notes, but I like the ones I play a little better. But
yeah, it is tough, and it's hard to listen and not play when you're a musician. Debussy said music is the space between notes, and,
yeah.
and Miles talked about the space between notes, and he was a master at not overplaying. But here's a couple quotes. Just any other thoughts? Roscoe Mitchell says, "Silence is perfect."
Mm, mm. Well, it's Roscoe. Roscoe knows how to use silence. Roscoe is, I mean, amazing. I remember when I lived in New York, I was still painting then. I wasn't playing. And a lot of these new up and coming hot guys all wanted to see like this new thing from Chicago. So they all went and they came back and I was finished what I was doing and we went out to get something to eat. We used to go to this place Cantor's in New York and stay there for a long time talking at like a deli and stuff. So we're talking about music and somebody said, "Oh, so what'd you think of the concert?" And then table exploded like all these instruments on stage and they hardly played at all and there was so much space and stuff and I'm thinking like, wow, okay, wow, that really. And then I bought Roscoe's record called Sound and there
Yeah,
was a lot of space in between the notes and stuff, and but it made every sound that he made have so much more gravity to it. And I
Yeah.
realized these guys were really into like that very dense, uh, um, um, like Ascension and that really intense period of culture, and where he was at his peak playing all this, all these intricate progressions that no one knew at the time were progressions. It just seemed very, random almost at
Yeah.
times, but it was not never random with him. I mean, he always knew what the hell he was doing. So I was thinking, and so I became a fan of that space thing, and that that led me to a greater understanding of how Roscoe approached his his solo playing and even his compositional thing. And I tried to incorporate that like later on because that really made this everything have a greater meaning. But Roscoe truly understands how to use space. Everybody might not like his approach to improvising and in his solo concerts. It's like man against machine, sometimes, but he's going for something. He knows what he wants to do, and he sets himself a time limit. And if he gets it in an hour, great. If he doesn't get it, that's great too.
Well, that I got exposed to Art Ensemble of Chicago when I was in Ann Arbor in the 70s, and they truly are visionary because I'll never forget hearing Theme de Yo-Yo on their soundtrack. That is
Mhm.
the funkiest out jazz ever. In the it's fatback drumming to the max with Fontella bass, amazing stuff. So here's a couple more quotes on silence, Vinny, and this is really good how you're use them as prompts to take off on any way you want. A Wee Wee, the Chinese artist, said, "For me, silence is music."
Mm. Well, now you got to understand that's a cultural difference, because in Chinese music, there's a lot of space for the sound to echo. Korean music, even more space. I mean, this great use of space, and then this amazing detail of texture, of the texture of the sound, and especially in Korea. I'm emphasizing Korean music because I was there last year for a month, and played with a lot of the traditional Korean players as well as some of the jazz guys. But they really have this sense of time pulse, one sound, and then other texture come in, and then something else happening. But each thing creates this kind of monolith of emotion that you enter. And there's a lot of bending of the tones and stuff, like Roscoe, and really using that space gorgeously. And that's also in some of the Chinese music that you hear. You hear that real attention to the bending of the sounds and stuff. Japanese music has that space too. It's a really different cultural approach to the music. Now, shakuhachi playing is like all about like hanging those sounds in there, really hanging those sounds in space, and really the texture of the note, and what you can put into that note, just that one note, like yeah, and then again, yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's beautiful. In they asked Sun Ra, "Where'd you get your influence?" And he said the birds. And Eric Dolphy used to listen to the crickets right here in L.A. In the middle. And John Cage said, "Silence is the sum of all the sounds of the environment."
Well, see, he intellectualizes things a lot. For me, he sometimes over intellectualizes
Yeah.
things, and I have a thing sometimes about him because he doesn't like to use the word improvisation, which
Really? I
which
didn't know
which
that.
yeah, he doesn't. He likes that everything is like aleatoric or music of chance or
Yeah.
that. You got to call it what it is, John. It's
Yeah,
improv. You're
yeah,
improvising. You're having your musicians improvising off a concept. That's it. You you want to argue that, you can argue that, but you have to use the word sooner or later.
really good point. And let's stick with another American, Bob Dylan. Experience teaches that silence terrifies the most.
Very true. I mean, how many of us can remain silent for a day?
Yeah,
And I mean, we used to have a thing I would go and work sometimes at the Lake Shrine
yeah.
Pacific Palisades.
Oh, yeah,
And yeah, and you would there would be no talking. You just did the work. And
yeah,
it was mostly landscaping and gardening and sometimes some painting and stuff. And it would be quiet. And people didn't talk. You could talk at lunchtime, it's
yeah,
fine, but unless you had something really important, everybody was quiet for the day, and a lot of people fear that. They think, like, when people are quiet, the first thing they'll say is, "Anything wrong?"
yeah,
Right? And and that's a Western thing. That is a Western thing. Uh, if you're in Japan and you're quiet, people say, "Oh, what a nice guy! He's a really nice guy." They don't know, It's just like, well, he's very nice. He's very quiet, keeps to himself. You're adapting. You adapt to the culture. And Americans, they like to, you know.
I'm glad you brought up Lake Shrine. My friend's dad built it, and Elvis used to meditate there. It's really
Huh,
an it's really an amazing place to be in LA, to be able to go to Lake Shrine and just
yeah.
really experience what you touched on, is what Pascal, the mathematician philosopher, said, that all the problems in the world could be solved if we could just sit in a room in solitude and be quiet.
Most likely, most likely, right,
Boy,
right.
we need that right now. So one more quote on silence, Vinny, is Thomas Carlyle. Speech is of time, silence is of eternity.
Hmm, that's interesting. Well, speech is metric. However you want it, whatever language you use, speech is
Yeah,
metric. So that's kind of interesting. And time is eternal. I mean, we really can't count it. We count it, like artificially count it, but it's not really, that's not really time. Time is from here to there,
yeah.
Sunrise great. Sunrise great. Sunrise has things that he says like, we have sunlight, it's not the sun. We have time, it's not the time. you know
Maddie,
he
who
says
says who said that?
sunrise,
Oh,
sunrise.
Sun Ra said that. I love it.
Yeah.
Sun Ra just went mainstream. He just got American Masters PBS documentary on him.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
we've already seen many very good documentaries on Sun Ra, but just to put it on PBS in America in 2026, to have Sun Ra, that to me is amazing. So I'm all the power to him. Now, Vinny, you played live in front of audiences for years. And the great Ruth Draper said the key is to bring the audience up onto the stage and into the scene with you. It is they who must give you even more than you give them in the way of imagination and creative power. Hey, that
Mm.
sounds good, but how do you do that? How do you bring the audience up onto the stage with you?
Well, you learn that from playing with other people.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what you learn from playing with real masters and stuff. I remember like John Carter one time. I was playing with John. Um it was I think it was my band. It was my band. We were playing in San Francisco, and I took the first solo on a kind of a swing tune. Took the first solo, and John came in and he started doing his wonderful arpeggiated way that he played on clarinet, and he did something, and he hit this one note, and then he hit it again, and he held it, and the rhythm section dropped out, and it was just him playing these long, mellifluous notes. And I looked at the audience, and the audience was mesmerized. He brought the whole, just like you said, he brought them like they were all sitting right in front of him, and he played. So then I got very thirsty, and I had to get some water. So I started to walk very quietly to the back of the room to get the thing. Now this place was like a ballroom, so it took me a minute. While I'm going there, John is soloing, like now unaccompanied. I get to the lady to ask for water, and I before I move my mouth, I see her, and she's like
she,
transfixed. She
she's
is
mesmerized too.
yes, yes. And then I realized that no one was moving. Not one person was moving. There was no motion, and I was the only person in motion. And so I slowly walked back quietly back to the stage. And as I got to the stage, John made a motion, and then everybody was moving, and the band came back in, and we finished the tune. And I saw that John brought everyone to him. So I learned from an elder master, like if you want to play, sometimes the best way to do it is to play softly, bring the people in with you, say what you have to say, and then let them go back to their space. It was amazing. I
Wow.
It was amazing. It was
You
amazing,
truly are
truly
a
amazing.
painter. You know, you painted a picture that I could really visualize there. That was gorgeous because Vinny Leonard Cohen says the only way you can sell a concert is if you put yourself at risk. And if you don't do that, people know. What role does risk play in your creative process?
Oh, well, I risk it every time I play because I got to figure out what I'm doing. I'll tell you where you want to test that the most. There used to be a program where you would play in prisons for the inmates,
Yeah.
and so I was hired, and we played there a number of times, and I saw like you really had to put out because these guys, they're no bullshit guys, regardless of their they have nothing but reality. They're faced with nothing but reality. So if you don't play to the fullest extent of your abilities, they know it in a minute, and they'll just slough you off, and then they'll go away, or they'll make comments or whatever. So you have to play, and you're there to play, and that's what you're going to do. They want, they don't care about being entertained. They just want you to give 100% and not take them for granted as humans. And so that's a lesson. Like every time you play, that could be the last time you play, especially now. I mean, Sunday I turned 80, you know. So, I mean, that's I'm on the final glide path here. So if I don't say things that I really want to say, what the hell's the point of getting up in front of people to what, to show that I can play scales fast or something like that? I don't want to do that. I want to make meaningful statements. And
Yeah.
again, that goes back to the people that you play with and the history of the people that you play with. You mentioned John Bergamo. John was always there, right there, man. Subramaniam was like one of the best musicians I ever played with in my entire life. That he knew the history of South Indian music, and he brought everything when he played. Just the first tone he made just took everybody. You had to gasp. It was so beautiful, and you could hear his whole life in the sound. And that's what you want. You want that, you know? I mean, you want to give that and say, like, this is me. So if there's no, if you're not going to say, this is me, now you can say, this is me, and somebody can go, like, I don't care. That's, that's fine, but you know that you put it there and that person said, like, okay, next. I'm not interested in that. That's fine.
Yeah.
It hurts a little, but I mean, we're human. Hurts a little bit, but I mean, you move with that. Like all the things people said about Coltrane and Dolphy when they were coming up and saying they were anti-jazz and this and that, and two people who loved jazz and making sounds more than anyone that you could think of, and
Yeah.
two of the nicest people in the world, and everybody is being very harsh and critical. I'm Albert Eiler is another guy like that, like really like a beautiful, peaceful soul, and he never understood why people didn't understand his music,
Yeah.
but he put it out there constantly, and
Yeah.
I mean, we come from that lineage, and that's our job. Take risks like that,
Yeah.
and be ready to deal with the outcome.
Yeah. Because most people answer that question, what role does risk play in your creative process? And they go a lot. One person said no. This is Napoleon Murphy Brock, who sang with Zappa for many years, great vocalist, and he's still
Mhm.
singing Zappa. And he's 82. And he said, I leave risk in the dressing room. And I think what he was saying is, I need to come out and feel like I'm confident, because he was playing complex music, but he also was put on the spot with Frank, and he had to improvise
Mhm.
words and be, risk. He had to take risk with what he was doing. So I think what it is too is, what does courage mean to you now? Does being able to take risks take courage? What's the roots of your knowing that risk is something that you need to pursue or tackle or you know challenge?
Well, the courage part comes from facing you and your limitations and trying to work beyond your limitations, I think.
Yeah.
And really getting to the core, kind of the crux of who you are and what you want to say, and really being able to articulate it in not just one way or with one instrument, for me, in my case. So like last night there was a concert I played, and I played baritone and A flat clarinet, it's very tiny, soprano saxophone and bass clarinet. But I also brought bass flute, piccolo, and some ethnic flutes. Now I didn't play those at all be, be, because just didn't feel like
Yeah.
that was the sound for the room. So I
Yeah.
made those kind of choices. But I started playing the bass clarinet, and that sound didn't fit the room either. So basically, I played mostly the three instruments I played were soprano, baritone, and A flat clarinet. So I have to have the kind of the courage to know that I can just play one instrument,
Yeah.
and no one will know that that's one of others that I play. They might think of me just as like, oh, the soprano player, or oh, the baritone player. I want to be able to have the courage to stand with one instrument and just play the concert with that one instrument and say the things I need to say with it, and find ways to say that with this instrument that isn't this instrument. It could be the same message, but they're two different ways of talking. And I don't know if that's courage or not, but I mean that's what I'm going for.
No, that's well put. But did you think you got that courage, that sense of courage, more from your own or more from the way your parents raised you?
Well, my parents were very supportive of me, and if I was when I was a painter, they were supportive. When I switched to music, they weren't so supportive because they thought I was having a moment of indecision and going off on a different tangent. I saw it as a continuum.
Yeah.
I saw it as just, working with sound the same as I saw working with colors on a palette. But they came to my 40th birthday. I was playing large ensemble at Hub Sings when that was still around in
Oh, I used to go to that club. Oh my
yeah,
God.
Marina Del Rey. So they came, and then they had a different opinion, and also they came because their their dentist was Joe Pass's brother.
Yeah.
And I happened to be interviewed in a magazine that his brother was interviewed in, and once they saw that people were taking me serious, they started to take me serious, and they always instilled in me the courage to face things like and
Yeah.
not run away.
Yeah.
So I'd say that I have some that I've built over time, but the roots of things come from, like everybody, the roots of things come from your parents.
Yeah.
So I give them great tribute. I wasn't always the best son when they were alive.
You painted that picture well, though. I love just visualizing Hop Sings. I ride my bike to the library every day, and I go by that building, and I always remember. I saw
Mm,
Ry Cooter there, Larry Coryell. I saw so many great groups there. What a great jazz club. So
mm,
Viola Spolin said, if the audience cannot see your struggle to achieve something, they can't root for you to achieve it. What role does struggle play in your creative process?
mm. I like to keep the struggle part between me and my instruments,
Yeah.
but uh, I don't know if that's always successful. Um, I don't know. That's an interesting question. Um, I know that people like when you went to see Coltrane, I've been told that, part of going to see them was the struggle. I've been told that people go to see Roscoe to see him struggle, to see if he's going to achieve what he wants to achieve, or if the instrument's going to win or not, and stuff like that. But I think the struggle is a strong word. I, I like the people to see me grapple with the instrument, like trying to like do these ideas that come, and you're in that moment where you're really working them and really expanding on that thing that's come out, and taking it to different places, like how Coltrane moves things melodically through these different fantastic cycles. Somebody like Wayne Shorter is much more, almost like bursts, he's thinking about the same kind of things to overcome, but he's looking at a different modality to figure it out. And I like to put myself in between those two camps where people can see you working and trying to express what it is that you feel through the instrument. That's much harder to do with painting, because with painting, with you, they only see the finished product. They don't see your interaction with the actual creation of it. So it's a little bit hard. So you have to work in a different way to get that kind of struggle happening, but you can do it. I mean, de Kooning's a great example. Picasso. You can see you can see you can see the struggles that they have, and you can see the outcome of the effect that it has when you're standing in a room, and just letting that the pictorial bliss like wash over you, you know. But it's a little harder to do. Like when you're doing it in a on a recording, for example, then that's the listener confronting his own patience or impatience with what's happening with the sound coming out. When you're in the audience, you're watching and then closing your eyes and seeing what the resulting sound has on you, and then you're watching again and you can see that thing happening.
Yeah, I like you're changing the word struggle to grapple, because it's reminds me of what McLuhan called the resonating interval. It's the in-betweenness, you know,
Mm.
in which it's like a throbbingness that, you know, it increases the involvement of the audience, especially if it's a live concert. Now,
You know,
go ahead.
yesterday I had a student at Cal Arts who asked me who Marshall McLuhan was.
No, you're kidding. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Well, send it, give them, send them to me, and we'll invite them to our McLuhan events. We really, to basically, it's really hard to get McLuhan, but on the surface, they think it's, you know, the form is more important than the content. Medium is the massage, medium and the message, but it's a lot deeper than that, because basically he got everything he knows from Finnegan's Wake in James Joyce, and the symbolists, Mallarmé and all those guys. So it's like, in order to get Marshall, you have to know all of Joyce and all the symbolists. So it's
Huh.
not easy, but it's still fun. And, you know, he's a pop culture character, because both Fellini and Buñuel turned down the part in Annie Hall, and Marshall was the third choice. So that's how he got in that movie.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. But here's Ben Ratliff. He wrote a book on Bill Frisell.
Mm.
Ben said, I mean sound as it has long functioned among jazz players as a mystical term of art, as in every musician finally needs a sound, a full and sensible embodiment of their artistic personality, such that it can be heard at best in a single note. So me and you can hear Miles and we'll go, oh, that's Miles, you know, hear a couple notes. And Ben described it in 2 words: fragile and pointed. He said Coltrane was slightly undercooked and urgent. He said Coleman Hawkins was mellow and generous. So if a writer was going to describe your sound, Vinny, you respected this writer, what 2 words would you go, hey, they got me?
Mm. Well, I'd have to figure out what instrument first.
Yeah, well, take your whatever instrument you would like, and what do you think?
Well, uh, wow. Uh, well, I like to think that there's a certain uh, fluidity and a certain poignantness in the sound that I have.
Yeah,
So I like to have those 2 extremes, you know, because one indicates the finger movement and the other one indicates the actual tonal quality of the sound. So I would hope that something along those lines, you know. I mean, I've been described a lot of different ways, so that's always pretty nice, and um it's usually complimentary, but sometimes not. You know, the last review I got, I saw one yesterday. It was sent to me. Discordant. I'm discordant. So so now I don't know what I am.
well, back to John Cage. He says, it doesn't matter what they write about you, it's how thick your press kit is.
Well, and my only beef with that kind of stuff is that you're really in trouble if you start to read it and you believe it.
Then believe it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So, I mean, all that stuff is really good, and it once served the purpose of getting more gigs, and now it's more like it seems to be more based in fandom or
yeah,
not liking somebody,
yeah.
and the essence of really good critical writing seems to be a bit lacking in this particular day and age.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
but we were lucky. We grew up with a lot of good jazz writers in LA, I feel. And
Yeah.
I've been here 46 years. But I mean, we also had Nat Hentoff and Stanley. We had all kinds of great jazz writers throughout the whole history of American jazz who really taught us
Mm.
deeper level what was going on, not just selling stuff. But here's a long one by Paul Bley, and I'd love to get your reaction. He says, I've spent many years learning how to play as slow as possible, and then many more years learning how to play as fast as possible. I spent many years trying to play as good as possible. At present, I'm trying to spend as many years learning how to play as bad as possible. My solo piano playing is a question in itself. The question is why, and after why comes what, and after what comes when. So it goes all over the place. And some guy I recently interviewed goes, Paul Bley was not an asshole, but he was just a smart aleck. And he was, but this whole thing about playing quality, playing as good as possible, as fast as possible, and like you said, I mean, we know the thing about notes these days is so many kids grow up playing notes too fast, and it's like, come on, we need to breathe between these notes. So you can go wherever you want with that, but the basic question is, Vinny, of the 5 W questions that start with the letter W, who, what, when, where, and why, which is the one that resonates most important for you?
Hmm. Wow. Uh, well, why comes to mind, but I have to say that Paul was a good friend of mine.
Oh, wow. Tell me about this.
Yeah. I met him through Barry Alshall. I've been a fan of his playing, and uh, he was married to Annette Peacock at the time,
Oh, yeah.
and
Wow.
I was just I had just got a saxophone, and Annette was interested in sometimes coming over and playing a little because she liked the rawness of it, that I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I seriously had the horn like a few months or so, but then from I would visit and we'd hang out and I'd be at Paul's house and he lived on Jane Street, 22 Jane Street, I think. And then he would just talk, and I learned quite a bit from him, and he also helped me quite a bit with setting up Nine Winds, the record label, in a sense, because he had just started his own label and improvising artists, uh, uh, and I didn't think. Well, I wanted to have a recording out, and I was looking around, and a lot of people didn't were doing it themselves, and I figured that being totally unknown, that probably was the best way to go is to put something out myself and blah blah blah. But that's another story. But Paul was very helpful, and I learned quite a bit from watching him and listening to him. He was playing. Uh, 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 I actually worked as a roadie for him, carrying his synthesizers and stuff like that. And we went to some concerts together, and I was fortunate enough to hear him play. In He didn't practice much or at all, but every one time he played a duo with Glenn Moore, the bass player,
Yeah.
and in Glenn's house, just spontaneous thing that happened. And it was one of the most amazing pieces of music I ever heard. He
Wow.
was a brilliant brilliant musician. And then by starting to research more, I didn't know much about his past, just his present, the trio records with Barry Alshaw and things like that. But by going back into his past, I started to learn more about him playing with Mingus and Coleman Hawkins and all these things. And he started telling a little bit more stories about that stuff, and it was just magnificent. He was very nice to me, and he could be a bit of a smartass with
But I think,
the
Vinny, what he's really saying there, in my opinion, you know him, so uh, is that he's saying you need to be able to unlearn what you know, and that's what we're always trying to. I mean, you're in an academic setting. How many years have you taught? We want to pass this on, but at some point when you master something, how do you unlearn it to free yourself up so you're not relying on this safety net you kind of have? So
yeah.
just your thoughts on that, having played music, your transition from going to painting then into music. Did you expect at that point, I'm going to just go deep into music and this is going to be my calling now, and then being a jazz educator, just in this whole process of unlearning? Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I mean, everything happened over time in a gradual way. Like there was very good reasons to switch. Like I was working with trying to transition out of working with physical paint into like more working with actual light and stuff, which led
Yeah.
me to laser beams at the time, and working with holographic stuff and laser beams. And what happened with that is it was very expensive, and I didn't have the money because I kept blowing them up and doing things with them that would tax them a little bit. And I had a saxophone, so I started to play more. And once I started traveling, it was easier just to bring a saxophone with me. So then when you want to play with other people, they're just not going to want to play squeaky bonk, squeaks bonk, squeaks bonk. You had to figure out like what the hell you were going to do with somebody wants to play all the things you are, and you go like, what's that, and you don't want to be that person, so you have to do the homework and do all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, or just be relegated to just playing, kind of like a very limited form of freer type music. And it's not really free, is it? Because
Yeah.
you're limited by your limitations. So then that wouldn't be playing free for me, you know so there are people who just do that and keep looking into it to try and expand the parameters. I wanted a bit more bigger playing field. I mean, yeah, that's like for me that would be like just painting like landscapes for the rest of your life. I don't want to do that. So
Yeah.
there's that, and meeting people like Paul and Bob Bradford. Like Bobby's a philosopher of the deepest kind, and he talks through jazz history. I mean, that's his reality, and he lived through most of it and played with most of these people, and he had stories and he had these things, and the more I started playing with him, the more I had to know more, because he's a master. So the more
Yeah.
you start playing with these masters, you can't just like rely on sounds you make. These people kick your ass, around the
Yeah.
street and back again. So, I mean, if if I would have been able to play something meaningful with Paul, I would have asked him to play. I had no fear about that, because I would learn something. But when it comes to to Paul, like he's a conservatory musician who came up and saw the beauty in improvised music, and he was a real improviser. I mean that, and he progressed into synthesizers and electric keyboards and stuff like that. And did I like the electric stuff as much? Nah, He had a
Yeah.
touch on the piano that no one else had, and I think he's a very influential piano player, especially on people like Keith Jarrett and Richie Byrack and such. And he's very seldom mentioned in the same breath as Chick Corea or Herbie Hancock, but
Yeah.
he's before them, and he even influenced those players. He's
Oh, yeah.
was a brilliant musician. So again, for me, I'm hanging out with these people. I see what they do. I see how they act. I see what they do. What the thing is, the reason I picked the word why is because I want to make sure that the music that I play has meaning, the same way their music had meaning. The same way Paul's music had this depth, one sound, depth, bam. The deepest two notes you ever heard. Boom, just hearing the overtones of the piano was like, okay, I want that in my sound, you know. Okay, so why do I want it? Well, I want it because not only did I hear it and it had an effect on me, but I want other people to have it now. So I'm passing it on. Uh, the other stuff about what I play doesn't matter. I don't care what I play. Where doesn't matter where I play. But why I play is the most important thing. Otherwise, I could just
Vin-
watch television.
Yeah, but Vinny, you're a good listener. You know how to talk and pull it back to the end, because I love the end of Paul's quote. You kind of summarized it. My solo piano playing is a question in itself. It's smart assy to say I'm learning how to play bad, but saying my piano playing is a question in itself. The question is why. After why comes what, and after what comes when, which is like time. Our 90 minutes is up, and I really want to cover a lot more. So maybe we can do a part 3 like 6 months
Huh.
down the line, because I want to get, I remember seeing your band, and was a huge fan of Skies of America by
Oh,
Jack Coleman. And I
yes.
says, that evoked what Ornette did to me so deeply, what you did with your big band. And I was always impressed with that, and have tried to see you over the years many times. And I would love to probe, harmonics and all these Henry Threadgill's, these kind of systems that these great composers have discussed and executed with their bands, and then get into Pauline Oliveris, which she calls deep listening. Like, what
Mhm.
the heck is that? I mean, to me, you are a deep listener. That's why your music's so great. And being an educator, I mean, basically, how many years have you been an educator?
Well, I started teaching when I got out of college. I taught sixth and seventh grade and some a little bit of high school, but not much. And I was a teaching assistant at the college I went to for drawing and stuff. So I've been teaching since I got out of school.
So for decades. So, it's
Yeah.
something we can get in deeper. And I really appreciate your time and energy, Vinny. You're really articulate, and it's fun talking with you, because it's sort of like, you know, discussing someone in a kind of Jackson Pollock meets Eric Dolphy kind of way, but also based in you're rooted in like Duke Ellington.
That's some heavy governing, man.
but that's what I get from talking with you. So thank you again, Vinny. This has really been a pleasure. And even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for asking me.
Thank you.